Okay, everybody. Today we're going to come very close to finishing aggregate demand and aggregate supply, which means, basically the exam will cover from national accounts to aggregate demand and aggregate supply. And so, the usual 5 questions, 8-mark questions, are likely to be 1 on national accounts, 1 on the macro model calculations, 1 on the diagram of monetary fiscal policy we talked about, finished off last day. 1 on the calculations, the equations of that. 1 on the diagram for aggregate demand and aggregate supply. 5 explanations and 5 multiple choice that I'll probably make up myself. Although I'm running out of time to do it, I can do it quickly, but probably will. Otherwise, some 5 multiple choice from previous exams. That's number 1. So basically, the exam covers from national accounts to all of aggregate demand and aggregate supply, except for shifts in like exogenous shifts in aggregate supply. You'll understand what I mean when I get to it. Okay, then, so that's 1 point. The second point is our exam. We will meet obviously Wednesday, and we will be in the same room we were in last time, SF 2101, I think. Is that right? 3201, thanks. Remember. Thank you, Erica. 3201. Just the same room we were in last time. I think we seemed to fit us, and that would be fine. If there's any issues, we'll go over to the other room. Number 3, I've arranged for seminars next week. I talked a bit about it, but now this is the timing. We continue, of course, with our Wednesday lecture, and in that lecture we will cover exchange rates. And it turns out exchange rates are not going to be on the exam because nobody really all cover it, and so they're not going to be an exam. But we're going to do it anyway. We're not going to do it in a heavy-handed way. I'm going to introduce you a kind of demand supply, fairly straightforward. To you, a straightforward model for exchange rates and this and that. It's worth learning just to get a sense of what it's about. It's good insight. And we won't even take the full 3 hours. But we might have to finish some aggregate demand and aggregate supply, which means if all that goes according to plan, our final date on Monday, August 12th, will be almost entirely reviewed. Okay, so leaving that as it is. Then next week, besides the usual seminars, because I don't think we've got any clash here, besides the usual seminars that go on the problem sets by the various TAs but at the various times, which I don't even remember, it's not important. On Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, between 2 and 5, we're going to have special final exam preparation seminars. Lisa, who, by the way, taught, because the prof, Cassandra, left, I guess, at New Year's. She taught the second half of the course and is quite familiar with these multiple choice. She's going to go through the micro multiple choice on previous exams. So you go in there, and if you've got any issues, if you don't understand anything, she'll have the answers, not just to give to you, what kind of the answer, no, but to take you through everything. So that is a preparation for the micro multiple choice, which would be probably 60% or more if you look at previous exams of the multiple choice in this exam. So micro is really important. On Wednesday from 2 to 5, one of the other TAs, and hoping it's going to be done, but I'm not absolutely certain, but it'll be one of the other TAs, will take you through 3 hours on all the macro multiple choice in previous exams. And I cannot stress this enough. If you individually screw up on the multiple choice on the final and do poorly, I cannot save you. I cannot save you, that's it. There's no playing around with that mark whatsoever. That'll determine where you stand. So please work on those multiple choice. Then on Thursday from 2 to 5, I'm going to go through the calculations and diagrams of the course as preparation for my 50 extra marks, which will be covering. These are the marks, not the multiple choice in the final. which will cover primarily short and long run, competitive equilibrium and monopoly. Those are the two 10-mark questions. A 10-mark question on monetary fiscal policy, a 10-mark question on aggregate demand and aggregate supply, and then 10 marks in explanations. So and also whatever we learn there should be useful for clarifying your understanding perhaps in multiple choice. And those are the preparatory seminars. And then the Monday, as I say, August 12th, should be like another preparatory seminar. So you guys should be, you don't have a lot of time by the time, by the time the course ends, but hopefully it'll end on Wednesday next week. So you can be full bore studying. We're not going to learn anything else on Monday. I wasn't sure that we wouldn't, but we're not going to. And it's just getting ready, right, everybody? Because that exam will come up very quickly on Tuesdays. I remind you, in the term, in the year, there's the course ends, there's a study week at the very least, and then maybe another week or two before the exam even happens. Here, the week, our course will certainly be done, or by Wednesday, and you're writing it in less than a week. So make sure you're serious about getting ready for this. Okay? Because as I say, you could have done beautifully in these midterms. So what if you bomb the final? So what? Now I personally think you should be able to kill the final. But actually, we put these multiple choices, spend a whole week on it. I told you, I did 25, the others did 25, we did a total of 75, we culled them down. We eventually agreed on like 56. It showed how much disagreement there was amongst us. And try to make sure that everything is as clear as it can possibly be. And fortunately, I can't entirely guarantee that because we all write a different form of English and so on, and it's just too much for me to impose my standards of English. But for the most part, for example, somehow the word transact, meaning sold, appears in a couple of questions. So it says, if so many, if good X is sold at a specific price, this is I don't know what it means. If the government imposes a price on X and it's transacted at that price, all it means is it's sold at that price. I don't know how I missed this, but anyway, there's a couple of those times that appears. But that's the problem. There's some slight difference in writing. Can't let it throw you. Have to be on your game, right? So, but for the most part, I think it's pretty good. But in that process, we ended up normally in a final exam in April, a lot of those questions are just baby questions, like total Mickey Mouse questions. Like of the 50 questions, I would say 25 are gimmies, and the other 25 we might have to think. On this one, because Gustavo was really good, and I think I write relatively demanding questions, you're probably looking at 35 that are demanding. You've got to think, you can't screw up. There's always something in there that you can't lose your mind for a minute. You can't assume anything. There's maybe 10 that are just straightforward, bing, but 10, 15. But 35, if there's any, you've got to pay attention to not be fooled. They're not just fooling you, but they're demanding, right? So, for example, you'll notice in many of the multiple choice in previous years, and I like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. If there's going to be options, why not get every single option and see if the students can figure it out? But in the multiple choice on finals, and this kind of multiple choice, as for equal 100, it's A, B, C, D, E, where E is usually none of the above. But for me, I didn't even put in none of the above in many cases. It's just A, B, C, D, E, so 5 different choices. And Gustavo does it that way. So I'm just saying, it'll be a challenge, but a challenge is good. Because if you're any good at all and you're prepared, you'll do well. If they're really simple questions, everybody can do well, and then it's hard to determine who's good and who's bad, right? So it will be a challenge. Make sure you're prepared. It's that simple. Yeah, go ahead, yeah. It's about.
Those Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday seminars, I just want to be clear the next week, right?
Yeah, the 6th, the 7th, and the 8th. Next week, yeah.
The location.
Oh, yeah. And I've posted all this stuff on the website. It turns out, I'll simply say that from my memory, and I don't know if that's all that good, Sydney Smith 2127 for Tuesday and Thursday, and Sydney Smith 1085 for Wednesday. Now my seminar on Thursday, as I just say, I don't want to be rude to you. I have a son your age, and I'm trying to train myself, because for me, the way I grew up, it was like training. You did school, you did sports, you ran ring sprints, you did what the coach said. That was the way the world was. But the modern world, the modern student doesn't do what the coach says. The coach says, run, the student says, I don't feel like running. We never had that. That would have just said, goodbye, get down the road, we don't want you on our team. But the point is, on that day, on that Thursday, I own you. 100% I own you. You come in and it's like, you write it, you draw it, and you do it, and you calculate it, or you get out. That's all I want, right? Because I can't help you. Sitting there piddling and thinking about it in your head, I can't help you. I need to see you drawing it, calculating it, and then I can correct it. So if you don't want to do that, don't show up. That's all. That's the one thing. Don't show up. Can only mean one thing. Okay, burning issues. Your stuff is posted on the website. Yeah.
Do you have some sort of technique that we should maybe do one thing first or the other? Because you know how some professors lay it out, so you do the long answer and then the multiple choice.
Well, I would say, I would concentrate on the multiple choice and get those done. Now, it turns out when you do my stuff, when I first, I was teaching at Scarborough. I taught you downtown here for about 10, 15 years, up to maybe 10 years ago or something. And I taught at Scarborough, I did for maybe 6 years or something. And I started teaching downtown here again. And the first time I went back into this thing, I actually asked my students challenging and time-consuming questions. So I would have 6 or 7 or 8 questions or something. Because I figured, okay, in an hour and a half, this is what we've done in the midterm, they can do these questions. No. Now, my 5 questions are set up. If you should be able to do them in an hour. If you're any good at all, you should do them in an hour. Which frees you up between an hour and a half and 2 hours to do the multiple choice. Do the multiple choice. The thing is, if you did spectacularly on my section and bombed the multiple choice so that you got basically, half the multiple choice, then that dictates really in a sense where you stand in the course. Because if you only got, if you're averaging the multiple choice of that which everybody does is 60%, it doesn't matter whether you're 90% in my stuff, you're 60%, right? So we just adjust everything accordingly. In short, do the multiple choice. But when you do the other stuff, for example, if you go and do then after that, you do my stuff and you do maybe some diagrams and Monopoly and normally I would say you always do multiple choice last because you do the calculations and the diagrams first and that gets your juices flowing and gets you thinking, and then when you look at this stuff you've got diagrams to compare and everything else. But here, no. Multiple choice first, ace it, move on. All right, everybody? That's the way it is. Yeah. Go ahead.
Are there same or similar multiple choices as before, right? It's like the same, exact same.
As what?
From the previous test. Exam.
No, they're not exactly the same. They're in a sense the same, but there's Gustavo and me writing them. And we don't know, in the year, there might be, for example, I've taught it 2 or 3 times in the last 4 years, so I'm not necessarily in every one of those ones, right? And Gustavo, I think, is in every one of those. But there's other people who are on them whose questions are sometimes, to me, they're pretty lax. They're not really interesting. So I'm just saying they're not exactly the same, but I think they're at the harder level of previous exams. Because when you look at these exams, sometimes they're just Mickey Mouse, big time. Not the kind of thing we do. They're really simple. There's some questions like that. I'm not saying they're not. But I think there's a higher proportion of more demanding questions. But I wouldn't let them happen if I didn't think you could do it, right? I want them to be hard enough so the other crew sections can't do well on them, but not hard enough that you can't do well on them, right? So make sure you stay awake and you'll be fine. Okay, any other burning issues? Good, here we go. All right, now last day we derived aggregate demand. I will revisit that and we'll move on. This turns out to be a hugely important part of the course, in the sense, a part of the learning experience, because it brings into play both of the parties in dispute here, and that is, it brings into play the neoclassical, that's basically the pre-1930 crowd, who believe in a kind of microeconomic way that supply and demand in the marketplace brings the economy to full employment, right? We've got that. And then we saw the Keynesian view, by the way, assumes for the most part that prices are fixed, for the most part, and then examines what happens if prices are fixed, what can happen. When you then bring prices in with this Keynesian view, you find out that the classical view may seems to be correct under certain circumstances, but there still may be room for the Keynesian view, right? And as I said to you before, the Keynesian view dominates from 1945 to 1970-ish, and then it's pretty well booted out in policy and in economics department for the most part by 1975, and it's pretty well gone until about 2005, and then we just had a great recession again, 2008, and everybody starts thinking about Keynes again, So these competing views are really important, and you need to know that. You need to discuss it and think about it. So we'll put it together, right? It's all quite logical and straightforward. So now let me just look at my notes here. Here we are. Last day we derived aggregate demand. Here it's non-linear, but that's fine. The main idea is that we say we derive that aggregate demand is at any given price level, there'll be a quantity demanded of GDP, of total output. The economy will demand a certain amount of output, GDP. And it's downward sloping because a fall in the price level stimulates people want to buy more things. We derive aggregate demand from aggregate expenditure. Now here I explain some of the reasons why that's given, what's given there. These reasons are not even that important as it turns out. The main thing is that you recognize this, because on this exam coming up, for example, I might have a question like this somewhere. Right like this, where I ask you this, but it's not going to be this. I'm going to get rid of this. T is going to be 0, right? And your whole thing is you're going to be asked to find aggregate demand. You're going to find aggregate demand from aggregate expenditure. And all that aggregate demand is essentially aggregate expenditure with a price variable in equilibrium. That's a key thing. So we say if prices go up, consumption goes down. If prices go up, investment goes down. That's not quite as obvious because if prices went up, profits might go up and investment might go up. But we argue, the profession argues that when prices go up, investment goes down. When prices go up, exports go down. We can pretty well flat out say that. If Canadian prices go up, our commodities are less competitive in the world, we don't sell as much. And if our prices go up, we import more. So probably I might have, for 1 or 2 marks, give you this stuff here, and there's government spending not related, and you just add it up and find aggregate demand, find aggregate expenditure with a price variable. Then here I show you that if we really want to get an aggregate expenditure function of the sort that we saw before, which is an autonomous expression and a marginal propensity to spend, then we just have to plug in a specific price into our aggregate expenditure function, which we calculated here, and we get equilibrium Y at given prices. And that's what aggregate demand is. It is equilibrium Y at given prices, right? So we do that, and we just express it this way. Now, it turns out, if I'm deriving this, just watch, we did this last day, given that expression, if price is 200 and I plug it in, this gives me an aggregate expenditure here, which gives me an equilibrium Y here, and aggregate demand is the relationship between price and equilibrium Y. Then I get this price here, 100. This gives me an aggregate demand, an aggregate expenditure here when the price is 100, an equilibrium Y here, and that's associated with that price, and we sketch it out like that, right? So we're going to go through this derivation abstractly without any numbers in a second to warm you up. And then, but as the calculations are concerned, I think I might have, I don't know, this exam might have calculations. Because in the final, we don't have as many calculations. So I might have some calculations, see if you guys can do it. Basically, once you have aggregate expenditure with the price variable, you're weighting raises, right? So the way I would ask it is, okay, here's C plus I plus G plus X plus I n. Figure out aggregate expenditure. Okay, you got that? That's a couple of marks. Now, here's another aggregate expenditure, which I want you to use. Can't use the first one, because if you made a mistake calculating it, it's no good. So then I'm going to give you an aggregate expenditure and say, okay, now tell me what aggregate demand is. What is aggregate demand? And then we're going to run from that, okay? Then we're going to figure out aggregate demand, then we're going to figure out aggregate supply. Then it's going to be, usual, as we do in micro, supply intersects demand, quantity demand equals quantity supply, here's the solution, blah, 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 right? There we go. Okay, so we begin. Then here I derive this thing here. And you're not going to get a question like that. Shifts in aggregate demand is incredibly important for us. I think we did this last day. We did a shift in aggregate demand, didn't we? We did, yeah. And I think most of the people did pretty well on that. Simple idea. If aggregate demand shifts by the shift in real GDP, right? That's what it does. It shifts. You just think about it this way. What is aggregate demand? It's the quantity demanded by the public at a given price. So basically, their incomes are the same as their GDP. If you give them more incomes, their aggregate demand goes up proportionally. So we're going to see that aggregate demand shifts by the increase or decrease in equilibrium GDP. But of course, the increase or decrease in equilibrium GDP is going to be caused by an increase or decrease in autonomous spending, government spending, investment, whatever. So basically, you'll see the shift in aggregate demand is always the multiplier times the change in autonomous spending, say the change in G. That's how aggregate demand shifts every single time. Left, right, left, right, left, right. That's it, never up and down. And you got to remember that. But then where it intersects, short run aggregate supply, determines the actual equilibrium. So the whole idea is going to be this. We know how we can change it. The theory, the Keynesian theory, supposedly, might be correct. You can change government spending and you can change aggregate demand. You can send the public dancing out there with all this extra income to buy goods. But the question then is, are the goods there for them to buy? And as they buy them, what happens to the price of goods? So if I said, okay guys, let's increase everybody's income in Canada by like $5,000. So everybody in Canada gets an extra $5,000. We all rush out to buy TVs. There's no TVs. There's not enough TVs or refrigerators. It's not enough. We have to produce it. But it's very expensive to produce. Say, how do we suddenly we're selling 10,000 TVs, now we need to sell 12. We have to produce the extra 12 TVs, and because of marginal cost going up, the cost of the TVs goes up. So the public has $1 billion to spend. Doesn't mean they're going to get, let's say a TV is $1,000. Let's say houses. We give you $1 billion. We're going to run out and get houses, and every house is $1 million, or like say it's $100,000. No. Let's say it's $100,000 for simplicity's sake. Then we're going to have 10,000 houses bought. The public's rushing up. The public wants 10,000 houses at $100,000 if the price doesn't change. But as they go up there, where do we get these new houses? You bid up the price of the houses, and it ends up the public spends $1 billion, but they don't get 10,000 houses. They get 7,500 houses because the price of houses is bid up to $150,000. So all the money is spent, but not all on real output, right, everybody? So we're going to see that that's very fundamental, and that's basically the idea. That's the idea. So we're going to remind you of this, then I'm going to explain to you aggregate short run, long run, aggregate supply, and then we're just going to play with it, right? That's what we're going to do. Okay, here we go. Okay. So, All right, let's get rid of this thing. All right, now the first thing to recognize is this. I'm going to put this out of the way for the moment. So supposing you've calculated aggregate expenditure, I'm going to give it to you. Here's AE. AE is 2,000 plus 0.75 Y minus 4P. Okay, first question. What is aggregate demand? I want the definition of it. What is the definition of aggregate demand? Just tell me. You've just been talking about. What is it? For those of you who haven't picked up your third exam, it's right there. What is the definition of aggregate demand? Well, first of all, it's demand. It's a relationship between price and something. What is it? What is the something? It's a relationship. Erica. What kind of quantity demand? What kind of quantity? Yeah. Alicia. GDP. Now, a special GDP. This is the clue. What kind of GDP? Real, but more than that, a specific type of GDP.
Equilibrium.
Equilibrium GDP. Flash, listen. Equilibrium GDP. It's a relationship between price level and equilibrium GDP. Equilibrium GDP. Now, if I want to aggregate demand from that, one way I can do it is to pick prices and do various results and find what the equilibrium Y was. And then if I knew it was linear, draw a linear function out of that. No. I want you to look at that and tell me how you're going to solve it so you have aggregate demand. And I just told you how to do it. It's a relationship between price and equilibrium GDP. How are you going to solve it? How are you going to find aggregate demand? Come on. Well, what is equilibrium GDP, people? Don't you sometimes fear that you'll be struck by lightning for forgetting things we talked about again and again? What is equilibrium GDP? Please. Back up. When is Y equal to GDP? Tell me, write it down. When is Y equal to GDP? When is income equal to GDP, Erica?
When Y equals 8.
No, you move forward. I mean, I move forward, I'm back up now. Specifically, when is Y equal to GDP? When is income equal to GDP?
Always.
Always, always, always. Okay. When is equilibrium GDP?
Y equals 8.
Okay, good enough. Solve it, people. Go ahead. Solve it. It's when Y equals AE. Go ahead. Simple. Okay, look up here then. Now let's just do this. So it's when Y equals 2,000 plus 0.75Y. Y equals GAE. Now notice, we're not going to get a unique number here. We're not going to get a unique number. We're going to get a relationship between P and Y. This is exactly like that which we've already done. I'm just going to do, in a sense, right here, that what we've done before. It's going to be, notice it's just the same old thing. Y minus 0.75Y, subtracting 0.75Y from both sides, equals 1 minus 0.75Y equals 2,000, or this is minus 4P here, 2,000 minus 4P, right? Now remember, P is going to be, the 4P stuff is actually simply a constant for a given P. So this is Y equals 2,000